Program Integrity for the Division of Aging.
Thank you. Well, I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. It looked good. Wish I would have gotten here sooner and I would have had some too. Okay. I am Arvin Brown and I do manage the Program Integrity Unit and I do represent the state agency, the Division of Aging Services. And I am here this afternoon to ask for you all's help. We would like to solicit input from you all on helping us to build what's called the intra-state funding formula. Some of you may or may not have heard of that formula, but that is how we at the Division of Aging Services, which is a part of the Department of Human Services, how we distribute money to the 12 area agencies on aging throughout the state, primarily for the Older Americans Act services that we provide, Meals on Wheels and in-home assistance and such. I failed to mention that Chris Mitchell is also a part of my office, and he's here, and he'll be helping me with this exercise today. So we've got 30 minutes to solicit your input on this. First, I want to provide a little bit of context before we go into what the intrastate funding formula is. I want you all to pay attention to what the mission of the department is, and that's to strengthen Georgia by providing individuals and families access to services that promote self-sufficiency, independence, and protect Georgia's vulnerable children and adults. Now, as we drill down a little deeper and we get to what our mission is, we at the Division of Aging Services support the larger mission of DHS by assisting older adults, at-risk adults, persons with disabilities and their families, and caregivers to achieve safe, healthy, independent, and self-reliant lives. Remember that when we go into the exercise. This is what we're charged with doing. We want to keep people independent. We want to keep them healthy. We want to keep them safe. Okay, so now back to what this intrastate funding formula is. We have to solicit input from the AAAs and from the public on how the formula is constructed. The Administration on Aging, ACL now, Administration for Community Living, they changed their name, they actually provide the funding to us, and they require that we go through this exercise with the public in mind. We don't make this decision in a silo in terms of how we provide funding that will support the vulnerable adults and seniors that we serve. So you see here, and you have it also on your sheet, if you received your sheet, I believe, that this is the law that requires we do this. Finally, I want to show you all what the current factors are in our current formula. Now, we get this data primarily from the census, and the census gets brand new data every 10 years. A census is done every 10 years. And so this is the best available data, and that's a requirement from that law that I just showed you, that the best available data is used to construct the formula. So the factors that we use are population 60 plus, low income minority 65 plus. You notice there's a difference. Well, the 65 plus is just how the census has decided to tabulate the data. It's not 60 plus for that particular factor. Low income 60 plus, rural 60 plus. There's not necessarily a rural estimate, but we have to construct what rural means based on census data, and we do that. And that's more than what you want to know. If you look at the bottom and you see these tiny black lines, all of that is how the algorithm plays out for us computing the census data. Disabled 65 plus and limited English speaking 65 plus. And we've assigned weights to each of these, 50% being the most important in this iteration of the census. And keep in mind, it hasn't been done since 2000, actually 2003, because it takes the census a couple of years before they actually tabulate all of the information from the census that was previously taken. So you can see the successive weights in here and how it was decided the last time we did this, and now it's time to do it again with the 2010 census data that we have. What we've given you, and everyone should have received a sheet that looks something like this. If you haven't, you can raise your hand, and if we have any additional ones, we'll give it to you. Cynthia, there's a couple of extras in the back if you have some. So what we want you to do is, based on what I showed you earlier in terms of the mission that DAS has laid out, take those things into consideration, take these factors into consideration, and if this is not the population, what the population that we should be serving looks like, please give us ideas for other factors that we need to include in the census and this formula. And we will take that into consideration as we're building our new intrastate funding formula that will impact all 12 of the area agencies on aging around the state. Now, if you don't have anything to write with, we've got some pens up here. You can raise your hands. But before you get started, if there are any questions, I went through this fast. I only have these 4 or 5 slides, and we only have 30 minutes before the next session. And I know you all need to, take time and think this through. But if you have any questions about this, please go ahead and ask.
We need some surveys on this side.
Okay. Okay. Keep your hand up, Gail, so they can see you.
You got a question?
Okay.
This is the first meeting I've been to, and I'm kind of naive. What is the funding? What is it for? Where does it go? Who receives it? How much money are you talking about?
Well, ultimately, the seniors receive the money. That's how we fund the services such as home-delivered meals, your in-home respite, telephone reassurance. Those are called Older Americans Act services, caregiver services. That's what we give to our 12 AAAs, area agencies on aging, and that's what they use to fund the services that they're providing to those seniors in their regions. Yes, Deb.
Are we supposed to be trying to figure out what weights we'd like to see or how it should be more equally distributed?
That is absolutely. You may do that, or if you see additional, or if you have additional factors that we should use, put that on there and what weight you think that should be. So it's a twofold thing.
So the 50%, 60 plus population, that means just because you're age 60 and the number of people living in your area, that weight is 50% of the funding, just because you're 60.
That's correct. If you'll notice on your page 2 that we have a link. If you don't think of anything right now, you can take the page home and you could submit your entries via the website here or COAGE's website as well. So again, don't feel pressure to think through it all today. Wanda?
I just sort of think it's important for people to understand in the current year's funding, the old formula here has been used in the new census data. And as a result of that, the areas in the whole southern swath of the state have lost a tremendous amount of funding. That having been said, they also did not lose any population. They just did not grow as fast as areas in the northern part of the state.
Very good points, Wanda. That is true using just the 60-plus census data. it did have a negative impact on some of the AAAs in the southern region and in one of the our current iterations of the formula distribution. But again, these other factors have not been inputted into that formula as of yet, and that's why we're giving you the opportunity to provide input on those as well.
In addition to what Wanda said, in southwest Georgia, we lost 13%. We took the largest cut because of this factor. So naturally, we're looking to want to see some more weight in the rural, because we have large rural area, and we have low income. And what we're doing now, we're having low income minorities. We have less funding to provide the service for the ones that are most in need. So it's just, we don't have the money, but yet we've got a large majority of people who need the services. So it's just not balanced out very well right now.
That is correct, Peggy. Debbie? And keep in mind, this formula is 10 years old, so again, it's time for it to be updated. And again, that's why we're soliciting your input.
In the heart of Georgia, Omaha area, we're also a very rural region. We lost $620,000 in 1 year. I've been with the area agency for 33 years. We've never lost and had such a large impact on our clients. We're talking about people out in the senior centers that have always had at least 20 or more clients. They're down to 17. They've reduced their days from 5 days a week to 4 days a week. We have homemaker clients that got 4 hours a week down to 1 hour a week. And how are we really going to help these people stay in the community and not go into a facility if we're not able to provide the services they need? We also talked in our office about how population has changed. A lot of people 6 years of age are still working. They're still active. They're healthier longer. So maybe increase the weight for those, or add a weight for population 65 plus and decrease the weight for the population 60 and over.
Good considerations, Gail.
Oh, shoot.
Well, I guess, Chris, you can kind of gauge the room and walk around and collect as people are finishing up. Okay. Okay.
One other thing, in some other states, there's been precedent set where the loss was staged over several years or mitigated by a base being inserted in the formula, and Georgia didn't elect to do that this year. We took full hit.
I'll be walking around to grab your sheet as you finish.
Arvin, I know that we use low income for minority and then low income, but what is the difference? I know in the census, don't they use poverty? And do you know, or can you tell me today, the difference with low income and then if we used poverty? I think that might help us.
They're the same. It's just a terminology difference.
Okay.
How many more public hearings will there be across the state?
Could you repeat that question?
The question was, how many more public hearings will there be across the state?
Right. What is the input from the communities across the state?
There will be at least 2 other public hearings after this one.
And Arvin, that's why I might add that we all need to publish that link so that people all over the state, even if we need to help them get online, can make comments.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Any other questions about the formula or the use or how it's applied? Yes. We've got a couple of questions. So the mic.
Yeah, I actually more just a question in what So obviously, if we increase the age to 65, I mean, I think someone else already said this. We were just discussing this. You look at the average. Our average customer, their age is about 72. So I'm thinking if they're either not even 65, so that means that I guess I'm thinking dollars would go further. I'm just thinking that out loud, and maybe that's the case.
Please
Okay. All right.
write that down.
Arvin, you probably need to repeat that.
The comment was that the average customer that we're serving is about 72. And so maybe bringing the age up in terms of that population factor to 70 or over may allow the dollars to stretch a little further.
That's not what my comment was about, but we have a lot of people in our mid-60s that are very, very, very sick and ill, so I don't want to put it past 65 myself. Years ago, we had a base, or 10 years ago, we had a base that was applied so that some of the areas that were cut so severely would not experience such a cut. Is that being considered this time?
It is. We instituted a 6% base the last time we did this to provide somewhat of a cushion for areas who lost a little more money, and that is definitely under consideration at this point as well.
Excuse me, how long do we have to provide input on the website? Do a little research and get a viable formula for this thing.
This will probably be open until at least October, so you've got a couple of months.
Thank you.
Any more sheets or questions? Don't want to rush anybody. We want to use up those 30 minutes.
Some people are wondering, what is the website for the...
Well, we've got two. You can go to www.gcoa.org, and there's a link somewhere on that website. But also, you can go directly to the Division of Aging Services website and if you have a pen, you can write it down because it's a little bit long. It's no www in front, but it's aging.dhs.georgia.gov/comment funding formula. It's on the sheet.
Let me point out that it's on the interstate funding formula comment form that you have. And if you've turned yours in, see if you can borrow one from the neighbor and get it.
I have a question. Where did the base come from?
Well, as someone mentioned earlier, other states use bases as well. And so as the state office is taking these factors under consideration, whatever the final formats of the factors are looking like, we also consider what other states are using and what the needs of our state is, and that's when we decided to use the base at that point.
Arvin, can you tell me the format for the additional public hearings? Will there be a formula proposed and then public will comment on the specific formula, or will it be additional comments regarding the overall formula?
Well, that's where we're heading with this, and that's a good question, Pete. We also have a meeting next month with the area agencies on aging, and that's when the actual formula will begin to take more shape. And at that point, those subsequent public hearings, you will actually have more formulas to look at. What formulas that have been proposed, what formulas have been voted upon by the state in consultation with the area agencies on aging, and that's when the public comment will actually be on a formula.
So, Arvin, is there a limit to the number of other factors you can consider? And are these, like, do you have to have these and then you can have some extras, or you could take all of these out and do something else?
Well, we're going to start by saying right now there's no limit. Obviously, we need it to add up to 100% or it won't be valid. But, yeah, we want more versus less right now, and then you can eliminate some because some won't have data that's going to be readily available on a frequent basis. Our intention at this point moving forward is so that some of those AAAs that you've heard of this evening that we're taking bigger hits, it won't happen all at one time. And that's what happened the last time we developed this formula. Again, it's 10 years old when the new census information came out, and we saw that the migration percentage-wise was northwards. Those AAAs that lost, again, via percentage, senior population were impacted negatively. And so we want to soften that blow by doing a formula based on updates. The census updates a lot of these things on every 2 years or so, and we want to keep up with that pace so that cuts for the AAAs won't hurt quite as bad. Yes, Scott.
Arvin, because the Older Americans Act defines older Americans as age 60 and up, though most of us in the room wouldn't agree with that, is it necessary that the funding formula also use that as a basis, or are we free as the state of Georgia, regardless of what the Older Americans Act defines, to define an older adult as 70 and up or 75 and up?
You absolutely can, and other states do.
Okay.
Okay, I'm looking and I'm seeing about 5 minutes left. Well, I won't belabor the point.
How long will this formula last? Like, you're resetting it, does it change every year, every 4 years?
It won't be every year because the data won't be available. Updated estimates won't be available annually, but it's about every 2 years that the census does that. We can't hold them to that because they're slower on some and quicker on others. So we will try to keep pace with whatever they're doing and update accordingly. Okay. Well, thank you for your input. I'm glad I had the time to come and visit with you this evening, and thank you. Please fill out your forms, and if you have to do it online, we provided a link for you. Thanks.
I do want to take just a moment to recognize two people that joined our meeting. We have two commissioners with us. First is Commissioner Brenda Fitzgerald, who is with the Department of Public Health. If you would stand so we can recognize you. And then also Commissioner Clyde Reese, who is the Commissioner of Community Health. We just all have this Reese in the back. So Cynthia, I turn it over to you.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Haley Dunn. I'm Community Affairs Manager with the DHS Division of Aging Services. Now, when Arvin gave the address for how to find the online survey to fill out, how many people here got dizzy? Probably a lot of you. Don't worry, I'm here to rescue you. An easy way to find that survey on the Division of Aging Services website is to go to aging.ga.gov, look for the tab that says Get Involved, and you'll find the survey for the interstate funding formula, and also a survey for the topic that I'm about to introduce. You probably know, we're all part of this big aging family, that dementia is taking an increasing toll on Georgia's families and on individuals here. Just to put it into perspective, between the year 2000 and 2025, cases of Alzheimer's disease alone will increase by 45%. That's a tremendous impact. And it includes, of course, Alzheimer's. That's just Alzheimer's disease. We're not looking at other forms of dementia. Alzheimer's represents about 60 to 80% of dementia cases nationwide. You can see we have a challenge ahead of us, and how are we going to meet that challenge as a state? Well, luckily we have a little bit of help. The Department of Health and Human Services developed a national Alzheimer's plan, which addresses ways for the nation to address the rise in Alzheimer's disease cases, and that includes prevention, research, health care, public safety, service delivery, caregiver education, and workforce development, among many other topics. And there also have been 40 states that have initiated the development of Alzheimer's plans in their area. Right now, about 30 of those plans are published online. So in response, we have champions in the General Assembly who passed Senate Bill 14 in the last legislative session. And Senate Bill 14 establishes the Georgia Alzheimer's and Related Dementias State Plan Task Force. By short, we're calling it GARD these days. And if you'll notice, we said Alzheimer's and related dementias, not just Alzheimer's disease, because we want to make sure that we hear all voices and that we address many different facets of the challenge that dementia presents for Georgia. And so with that task force, there are 6 appointed members. They include the commissioners of community health and public health, and also Representative Tommy Benton, Senator Renee Unterman, who was a leading champion of that legislation, and also Representative Sharon Cooper. And the chair of the task force is Jay Bulott, the director of the Division of Aging Services with Department of Human Services. In addition to that, you imagine you have 6 people with profound expertise, but how do 6 people address a challenge like that? Luckily, we have, at this count, 52 advisors who, from every possible facet of Georgian life, who are participating on that task force as well. And they represent medical research, law enforcement, service delivery. We have caregivers on the advisory committee, as well as people who are experiencing Alzheimer's in their own lives. So we are very lucky to have that team behind us. And our team is not just made up of those people that I described previously. It also includes you and everyone that you touch out in the community after you leave this presentation. As you see, we have forms for you to fill out here. Georgia Alzheimer's and Related Dementias Estate Plan comments. We would like for you to take a few moments to fill these out, and I'm actually going to turn things over to Cliff Burt to tell you more about what we're going to do from here, because we want to hear your voices today so that our committees can take this and work with it to create a state plan that addresses how Georgia should move forward legislatively and in terms of state agency policy and in terms of partnerships to actually become more dementia capable. Now I'd like to introduce Cliff Burt with the Division of Aging Services. He's going to tell you a little bit more about the process today.
Thank you, Cynthia. I'm Cliff Burt, Caregiver Specialist with the Georgia Division of Aging Services. And as Cynthia's just mentioned, each of you should have at your tables the comment sheet with today's date on it. It says Georgia Alzheimer's and Related Dementia State Plan across the top. We'd like to invite you at this point in time to take about 5 minutes and choose a topic area on this list that you feel passionate about. And we're going to, like I said, give you a few minutes to do that. And then what we'd like to do is to ask you and invite you to make your way, if you'd like to one of the microphones and share with this group the topic that you are indeed most interested in moving forward with. Now, we of course are not going to have time for all the comments in the room. That would be impossible. But we would like to hear from some of you, but rest assured that all of the information that you provide to us today will be compiled and provided to the committee, the Alzheimer's Task Force. So let's go ahead and, if you will, at that time, do this. And I know some of you are not shy, and even though a lot of us don't like microphones, we know a number of you will overcome your fear and will do that for us. So we'll just take a few minutes here.
I think I'd like to speak out on behalf of the home and community-based and the assistance for unpaid caregivers. And I think as professionals, I've never been so touched as by a story which is far more illustrative of what the need is here. So I'll just relay the story to you that I found so profound when I heard it. And it was the gentleman who was 58 years old. And he said that he never dreamed that he and his family would need help. But when he was diagnosed with early dementia or early Alzheimer's, he recognized that very shortly he had to quit his job. His wife, who never worked, had to go back to work. Were it not for adult daycare and respite care, his family would probably be homeless because his wife was earning definitely less than what he might have earned. His career was shortened by this diagnosis. And it affected their lives. This goes beyond age. It goes beyond picking yourself up by the bootstraps. It goes beyond planning, normal planning for retirement, and anything else. That things happen in an instant to us in our lives. And the increase in the number of dementias and Alzheimer's isn't stopping as the population we talked about so many times today, the tsunami is coming our way. And so it's critically important that we support these caregivers, because otherwise people in that type of situation would be in institutions or homeless. We have to do better.
Okay, thank you, Marie. If you have a comment, raise your hand and someone will bring a microphone over to you. Down front, Catherine Ivey.
I think
It's on.
All right, thank you. I want to combine two of these because I think it is appropriate to combine the second bullet and the last bullet. So the second bullet has to do with increasing the safety of people with dementia on the roads, at homes, in the communities. And the last bullet has to do with professional workforce. And I think the two are intrinsically linked because I'm concerned about the need to increase screening and increase awareness of the signs and symptoms of early dementia. I think it is very hard, even for folks in healthcare, to tease out those signs and symptoms of early to mild dementia. And we've got to begin to train a workforce across the board that can recognize those signs and then apply a dementia screen so that we can detect early those folks with dementia before they become a safety risk to themselves and to others on the roads and in their communities.
Okay. Thank you. Someone else?
My question is, does the Older Americans Act, I mean, I don't know, does it fund any adult daycare services?
Daycare and in-home respite are two components widely funded in Georgia and many states using Title III funds from the Older Americans Act, and more specifically Title IIIe, which is the Family Caregiver Support Act the newest component of the Older Americans Act, made 5 different components or provisions, and again, respite and daycare are frequently funded with that as well. And then in addition to that, there are a number of state-funded sources that fund daycare, including state-funded Alzheimer's and CBS fund source, among others.
So we don't, I'm looking at Maureen because we don't see that. I mean, in the counties that we serve, I don't know, maybe they just don't get those dollars for adult day? They do get dollars? They do? Okay, all right.
We don't.
Just probably need.
Okay. Virginia Griffin.
I would just like to say a couple of things about the first bullet. We're lucky in our area that we have a really good CareNet. The Rosalind Carter Institute out of Americas does these around the country. That's one way to pull your community together to talk about issues. We also have the Aging and Disability Resource Connection, which is another marvelous way. We do community forums, community caregiver trainings each year to educate the caregivers. And we do lots of lunch and learn seminars.
You mentioned CareNets. I believe Dr. Lisa Easom is here, and her group, the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregiving, instituted CareNets. And there's Lisa.
Thank you, Virginia, for mentioning that. I am Lisa Eason from the Rosalind Carter Institute, and our CareNet Coalition is in every county in the state of Georgia, so I hope you'll connect with those. And we do have a new program that we've rolled out, the ROAD program, Reaching Out to Assess Dementia, and it will be rolling through our CareNets. I think the training is in September for those CareNets. So that screening, that memory loss screening, is very well needed, as Lady in Purple said. It is needed, and we are having people in our own area, people asking for repeats every 6 months. They want this screening. So there's a lot of interest. Thank you.
I have a safety issue, and that needs to be the training in the police departments and the sheriff departments by some person that knows how to train them to recognize a lost Alzheimer's person, because they get away from you sometime and they're on the streets. And I saw one picked up not too long ago. The policeman knew it was an Alzheimer's lady and knew where she lived and took her home. And that's real important, to be able to take them home because they don't know how to go home.
Thank you, Gwen. That's a good segue for the Alzheimer's Association staff, and I know they've done a lot of training around the state on law enforcement and paid for a lot of that through an Alzheimer's early stage Alzheimer's demonstration grant we just concluded with a number of you folks recently. Yes, sir.
Just to follow up on her point, in addition to that training, I think it's important that people in the law enforcement world be trained to recognize the symptoms in a way where they're not arresting people. I've actually recently been involved in a case out in Athens where somebody ended up being arrested when if the police officer was properly trained to recognize what he was dealing with, he would not have treated the person as he did. And so training in that area, and then in conjunction with, it's my understanding the state is now toying with specialty courts, including mental health courts, where somebody who is charged with something, a crime, but there's a mental health issue that is compounding their circumstances and might have contributed to the crime, their case isn't sent to the normal criminal court, it's sent to a mental health court where the court and the staff are better trained to help this person adapt and treat them and not just throw them in jail. So if we can, a more broad use of that type of a court system to minimize the times when somebody with some sort of Alzheimer's-like dementia is being treated as a common criminal when in reality their illness is the source of the problem.
Thank you. I see Suzette Benford from the Alzheimer's Association, and I'm sure she'll want to make some comments to that too.
I just wanted to say that
at the Alzheimer's Association, my colleague Kim Franklin, who's over here, has trained literally probably thousands of law enforcement and first responders about dementia. She does crisis intervention trainings, and she's post-certified, so she goes and also trains them about Maddie's Call and what to do when there's a found person. But Cliff and I were at the Systems Integration Conference just last week in Peachtree City, and we were talking about this issue of found people and the problems with what to do with someone when you don't know where they belong. And the people, we had, what, Cliff, about
75 people in the room.
And all of them had the same kind of concerns about law enforcement, not knowing what to do. I think they're really anxious and eager for more information. So hopefully we'll, get further along in our ability to take care of these found people. But in the meantime, if you have law enforcement in your areas, we have 7 regional offices in Georgia. So if you know police jurisdictions who want to have the training, just let us know and we can arrange to do that.
Great. Okay, Melanie, I think you were next. Sorry.
So I just wanted to mention on the third bullet point that we're talking on this page, how can we improve home and community-based dementia services to reduce the need for institutional care? I think that's a good issue, but we also need to think about improving the dementia care for people no matter where they are. What we find, I'm with the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, what we find locally, what I'm hearing from Ombudsman is frequently, especially in personal care homes, there are people who want to age in place, but they have dementia, and the caregivers don't really know how to care for them, and so problems arise for that reason. We also know that even in skilled nursing facilities, sometimes the folks aren't trained as well as they could be to manage the behaviors as people advance through the dementia spectrum, if you want to call it that. And so I think this issue should be broader, not just how do we help people in the community, but how do we help people no matter where they are to improve the dementia services. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Dr. Miles.
Y'all just don't want to hear what I have to say. Okay. People are going to get tired of hearing this, but I lived in Louisville, Kentucky for a long time before I moved here. And every year we go down to the Capitol and lobby for a safe return law. And so we got one in Kentucky. So granted, you're going to have to teach law enforcement about how to talk to someone and think that they might be talking to someone with dementia. But you're also going to have to create a tag system. Because if the policeman thinks that the person has dementia but they don't know where they belong, so in Kentucky you can get the Kentuckiana chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, SOPM, that have people's addresses on them. Tag them so people will know where they belong, so they can get home safely. We did the same thing in Texas. That is a very important and very cheap way to solve this problem of people wandering away.
Okay, Kim Franklin, would like to respond from the Alzheimer's Association.
We have that program here in the state of Georgia, too. It's Medical Alert Safe Return. It is a nationwide program. And we also have grant funds here in the state of Georgia to enroll individuals at no cost.
Hear that? So even if someone cannot afford it, they have funds.
Another issue that we run into are people who are driving who shouldn't be driving. And family members refuse to take the driver's license away from the family members because that's their freedom is being taken away from them, and they feel guilty even bringing it to a facility. We have undone batteries in cars to keep them in their lot, so the families are too scared to tell the parents they can't do it. But I have seen these people driving on roads. They are scary. They run red lights. They run around buses with the stop signs out, and they don't remember. I had 2 or 3 that's already hit cars that don't remember hitting a car. That's an issue that I think is going to have to be addressed sooner or later by the state legislature, that they don't need to be driving. And how do you qualify it? I don't know. Another issue when you're talking about people with dementia, what to do with them. I've been in business 21 years. 21 years ago, we didn't have memory care. People who live in my independent were in my assisted living. I got 28 people in memory care today. Not a one of them have been alive 21 years ago. People are living longer. My average age 21 years ago was 79 for a man, 80 for a woman. Today is 89 for a man and 90 for a woman. We got people bumping hundreds left and right. And, I mean, Alzheimer's is like a new buzzword for a lot of people, but the society's really gotten older. And then people who have the memory care who are in the last stages, they're the most difficult people in the world. And we're seeing a lot of them coming in. They've really been abused by the family members because they don't know how to deal with them.
Okay. Thank you, sir. See, Mary, you have someone? Yeah.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about 2 and 3, helping people stay at home and also helping families. One of the things that I think would really help is if somebody has dementia, to assign a case manager to that person and family. Because Cliff and I have worked at the Alzheimer's Association. What we found is when people called there, they were asking for something specific, but we would send a whole packet out hoping that would answer all of their questions. And what we found is by following them over a year's time, we were able to help them find the resources and take the actions that they needed as the disease progressed, because it doesn't stay the same. And some people think that it's a short-term commitment when it's a very long-term commitment.
Yes. Thank you, Shirley.
I just want to echo what's already been said. We are living in a society with increased longevity, chronic illnesses. The older adult has at least 2 as they age, and this is not going to get any better, but they want to age in place. They want to live at home. We need to be able to deliver effective caregiver support programs so that they can stay in the home. We need to empower those caregivers so they know how to deal with the difficult behaviors. And we need to do this through evidence-based programming. And we need to implement this throughout all of our community agencies in the state of Georgia. And I definitely think they are there. REACH is one. There are many out there. Care consultations, some are telephonic. There's all different types of delivery. Some are face-to-face. And you're right. These caregiver programs need to be tailored to the family's needs, because one family's needs may differ from another. And they're quite able to do that. They're driven by research, and so we know that they work. So I would think that our state plan needs to include these.
Thank you, Dr. Eason. Okay.
Can y'all hear me now? I'm very passionate about this issue, and so I have some comments on pretty much everything, but I'll limit it at this point. Just wanted to say before I start that I speak today just for myself, not any of my clients that I represent. So this is coming just from me, Sheila. In terms of driving, my mom, as a lot of folks in this room know, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at 58, died just about 18 months ago. We went to a lot of support groups held all over the Atlanta area, and they were fantastic. We did not let my mom drive. We had that hard conversation of the fact that she was not allowed to drive. It was among the more brutal conversations that I've ever had with her. Most of the people that were in our support group were still driving. I personally feel that from a policy perspective, we have state laws in effect that say if you've had a seizure, you have to be 6 months without a seizure before you can get your driver's license back. And I think at some point in this state and in a lot of states in this country, we're going to have those tough discussions about when is it time to make families take the car keys away. And maybe that's you get a diagnosis and you have to go to a driving assessment test, or you have to once a year, maybe every 6 months you have to have a follow-up with a nurse practitioner that can assess that on some level. But we've got to have some of those really hard decisions before we have more people unnecessarily killed on our roads. And I feel very strongly about that. The only other comment I have is I think the third and fourth bullets could be together. From my family's personal experience, we wanted to keep my mom at home as long as we could. We were able to keep her at home the entire time. But that came at a tremendous cost financially, but it also came at a tremendous cost for all the family members, because when you are caring with somebody with Alzheimer's, particularly in the middle stages, I think that's my cue, you really have to have almost one-on-one care 24/7, because the moment you turn your back, and we felt like we were good caregivers, but we turned our back one time and she walked a half mile down the road and we were in the kitchen packing stuff up. We weren't a bad caregiver, but it requires that one-on-one. And so I would say we need to have more education on the communities. We need to have more caregiving, even at helper-type models. And we need to have folks that understand what that looks like and how to be able to keep folks in the home for as long as possible. And sometimes that's skilled nursing, and sometimes it's just an adult sitter that has the compassion to sit and hold my mom's hand and listen to 60 hours.
Thank you, Sheila. We probably have time for maybe 2 more comments. Okay. Robin Dill.
Okay, just hold it close.
I'm speaking professionally as well as personally. I direct a respite in Lawrenceville, and I work closely with caregivers. And the caregiver needs that we could talk about, the first one is taking away the stigma of dementia, of having a father, mother, husband, wife, son, daughter, aunt, uncle with dementia. How can we take away the stigma? You know, I make choices in my life, but that's one choice I would never choose. Another thing is education, and what I would love to see is our colleges get involved. We have lots of college students that advocate for lots of different things, but to get college students involved and get into that next generation, how can we get them involved? We've got lots of older adults here and middle-aged adults, but there are few college students in this arena. We need to get them involved in this and educate and advocate with them. Thank you.
Okay. Let's take one more comment in the back of the room.
Is it on? I'm going to do this from a professional and a personal standpoint. I lost my dad about 2 weeks ago, and it was an 18-year-old struggle, and I don't know a life without dementia. I think the most important part of this plan is going to need to be education, professionally and family-wise. Education is going to start in the house with the families, because if the families have the education, then when professionally they go into a community, it's going to help our jobs. When that family comes after you, they're going to know what's going on. And I think the professionals are going to have to be mandated to have education, because just because you carry a license does not mean you know how to take care of somebody with dementia. So I think that's going to have to be mandated, and it's going to have to be mandated that they are trained by somebody that knows what they're doing, not by a video in their community. That's going to be very important. I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes about that. That's going to be very important. And it's going to be important that they're trained to deal with somebody from the warning signs down to the very last stage, because that person with dementia is a human being. So they're going to have to deal with them the whole time. That's going to be very important in this whole plan. And I do think that education is going to be the key to it.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comment. We thank all of you for your comments. And again, if you will write anything down that you want us to see, as I said earlier, we'll compile everything. All the information will be given to the committees. And maybe Mary and you and I and Catherine, let's make sure we get all these forms taken up and not swept away with lunch boxes. And I'll turn the meeting back over to Catherine Fowler or to Patty Lyons.
Thank you. Okay, we're right at the end. I want to make sure that you put these dates on your calendar. Our next meeting will be October 3rd in Savannah, which is God's country, and I say that because that's where I live. But after that, we'll be in April. We'll be in Albany, and of course, in between there, we've got Senior Week, which will be February 26th and 27th. Now, if your group or your organization is interested in hosting a co-age meeting, just please let us know. You can talk to one of us here or at any time get on the council's brand new website that went live actually at midnight tonight. Well, we think it was midnight. We were all asleep, but it was there this morning when we woke up. But I do want to thank Golden Cuisine, who once again has been a longtime sponsor of the co-age meetings. The Georgia Division on Aging Services for giving us all the opportunity to give you our thoughts on the interstate funding formula. And of course what we just had, which was the opportunity to comment on the Alzheimer's State Task Force Plan as they continued their work. I want to thank our legislators who joined us and of course all of you, and Communications Design Group, who is doing our AV and has just done a remarkable job and has helped us with the streaming and the archiving. There's been an awful lot of information today. You can get on the council website, watch the meeting again, fast forward to the space that you want to hear again to learn more about the issues. And I encourage you to do that. Encourage your friends to get on the website so that they can learn more about it, because it is all a part of having a voice and letting your voice be heard. If you would take a moment, for those of you in the room, you have an evaluation that was in your packet. Please take a moment to give us your thoughts on how we can improve the meetings and make them more beneficial for you. If you're online, again, just come on our website. And I will end with a quote. It's one of my favorite. Mark Twain said that the two best days in your life are the day that you were born and the day you discover why. And for many of us, that why is what we've been talking about today, being a voice for people who need help aging successfully. So I thank you for being here and participating in the process. I encourage you to stay involved. I encourage you to vote so that the co-age and the council know what we think are the most important things for us to focus on this next legislative session. And I will see you on October 3rd in Albany. Savannah! Oh my gosh, after I made a big deal about Savannah. For those of you that are in the room, the Alzheimer's State Task Force Group is going to have a meeting right after we clear out. So if you're not staying for that, if you wouldn't mind packing up as quickly as possible so they can get to their work. Again, thank you for being here.